All right, we have some breaking news to get to here on Golden State Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Senior, bringing you this video from home on an off day. One, because there are no days off, and two, the Warriors have made two signings, the most notable of which they have signed Avery Bradley, who has a chance to compete for the 15th and final roster spot going into NBA training camp, which begins next week. But first, this is why you subscribe to the channel, because whether we're at the Chat Sports studios or at home, when breaking news happens or anything notable goes down with your Golden State Warriors, we have you covered right here on the channel. So this news coming from Charania of The Athletic as well as Anthony Slater of The Athletic. We'll run through a series of tweets and then I'll break down what this signing of Avery Bradley means. Also, Golden State is bringing in Langston Galloway to compete for a roster spot in training camp as well. Shams taking to Twitter to say this: free agent Avery Bradley has agreed to a deal with the Golden State Warriors. Sources tell me and Anthony Slater. Slater said that Bradley fills up the last remaining training camp spot for the Warriors. He's going to have an opportunity to compete for the vacant 15th roster spot. Shams also reported a little bit earlier, before the Avery Bradley news came down, that the Warriors are signing free agent guard Langston Galloway to a training camp deal, and he was playing last year with the Phoenix Suns, a journeyman a little bit, played his college ball at St. Joe's. I'll expand my thoughts on him a little bit later as well. Now, earlier on in the week, we had talked about this here on the channel, that Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas, a group of other players, were going to be coming into the Bay Area for workouts to try and compete for these roster spots in training camp. Slater did say this: after a strong week of workouts with the Warriors, I'm told Isaiah Thomas left town without a deal commitment, and the belief is he will seek out a more clear opportunity to make a team elsewhere as the Warriors prioritize wing and front court depth, which is really what Avery Bradley brings to the table. So as we continue to move forward with this news, this is what I want you to do right now. Get into the comment section and let me know if you like this deal, the signing of Avery Bradley. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know how you feel about this in the comment section right now. Some background on Avery Bradley. He's 30 years old, so even though he's been in the league since 2010, he's still somewhat young. I know as athletes, when guys get into their 30s, we're like, oh, they're getting older, they're washed. I'm 29, about to turn 30. So what does that make me? I still feel pretty damn good. I'd love to be in the shape of Avery Bradley, but he's a very good defensive player still at this point of his career, even though he's been in the league for more than a decade. He can also shoot the basketball a little bit from the outside. That's something that he has worked on and developed and gotten better at over time. Now, he's not exactly a Kelly Oubre replacement. Oubre brings you a lot more explosion on the offensive end of the floor and can create a little bit better, is younger, more spry, and a better athlete at this point of his career than Avery Bradley is. But you're basically not going to be paying Avery Bradley anything. You're not guaranteeing him a roster spot at all. With Langston Galloway and a couple of other guys, it's going to be them all competing for that 15th and final roster spot for opening day when the Warriors tip off the season against the Los Angeles Lakers. Bradley's been in the league, as I mentioned, since 2010. Definitely some pedigree, too, going into the league. He spent 1 year at Texas with the Longhorns, was a first-round pick, was with the Boston Celtics from 2010 to 2017. At the high school level, he was a McDonald's All-American, so he received a lot of accolades there. First-team All-Defense in 2016, and yeah, that was 5 years ago, but we're not all too removed from Avery Bradley being able to get it done on the defensive end of the floor, and he was a second-team All-Defender in 2013 as well. So really, the sticking point, the strength for Avery Bradley, his ability to guard really good guards across the league ever since he came into the league. I mean, he was looked at as a defensive stalwart with the Boston Celtics, and he's popped around the last couple of years with the Miami Heat, Los Angeles Lakers, Houston Rockets as well. And even though sometimes his minutes the last couple of years have been sporadic, what's the one steady thing? It is his defense. And I think the Warriors can really use a solid defensive presence on the floor. You get back Klay Thompson, who is an all-world defender when he's healthy. You have Draymond Green, who's one of the better switchable defenders across the league. But last year, without Klay, having to rely so much on Steph Curry on the offensive end, I thought this team at times was really bad defensively. And that's an edge that Avery Bradley would be able to give this team if he does crack the roster. Career averages of 11.5 points per game, 2.9 assists, 1 steal per game. So there you go with the defense. 43% shooter from the field throughout his career, and 36% from distance, which is right around league average. He can be a little bit streaky there, but I think, of course, there's a lot of value in guys who can play premier defense, but also stretch the floor and be relied upon to knock down some threes occasionally from distance. And as I mentioned, like, the Warriors certainly need defense. They weren't good on that end of the floor last year, and also what Bradley gives you, a little bit of character, a lot of veteran experience, some good leadership as well. Because he does pride himself on defense, he is considered to be a winning player. So I like those attributes that he does bring to this Warriors team. I do want to look at the Warriors roster going into training camp, which starts on September 28th. It's pretty crazy because it feels as though the NBA Finals didn't wrap up all too long ago, and here we are about to jump right in to the 2021-2022 season. We're obviously recording this right after the news broke of Avery Bradley signing, as well as Langston Galloway, who we'll still get to here in just a moment. But this is the Warriors roster going into training camp. 15 people for the final roster, and they have a little bit more than that right now. So Nemanja Bjelica, they signed him in free agency, kind of a stretch power forward who can knock down some threes and give you a little bit there with some size too. Chris Chiozza signed that deal back a few weeks ago as maybe a guy who can come in off the bench. You have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, who you signed in NBA free agency for him to come back with this franchise. Maybe you don't need Avery Bradley because you do have Iggy, who is more of a wing defender than is Bradley, who is a guard defender, but we'll see how that kind of works out in training camp. Jonathan Kuminga, Damian Lee, Kevon Looney, Moses Moody, Michael Mulder, Gary Payton, Jordan Poole, Otto Porter Jr., Klay Thompson, Juan Toscano Anderson, Andrew Wiggins, and James Wiseman. So right there, that is 17 names plus Avery Bradley, as well as Langston Galloway. A couple of other notes, if you didn't check out our show the other day, James Wiseman not expected to start the season as he comes back and rehabilitates that knee injury. He's expected to start working out in mid-October. That's when the regular season does begin. And then for Klay Thompson, I think the Warriors are going to be targeting around a Christmas Day return. Steve Kerr talked about that today or yesterday, actually, and said it's going to be emotional when Klay Thompson comes back, and of course it will be. He's one of the best players in the history of this franchise, maybe second best behind Steph Curry. He's meant so much to this organization. He was a part of those 3 championships from 2015 to 2019, multi-time All-Star, one of the best shooters that we've ever seen. His defensive ability was great. We'll see if he can get back to that form, but I agree with Steve Kerr. It's going to be emotional to see Klay Thompson come back, coming off the consecutive torn ACL and torn Achilles injuries. As for Langston Galloway, came into the league 2014-2015 out of St. Joe's. That's the same university in the Philadelphia area where longtime former NBA point guard Jameer Nelson went to school, as well as Delonte West and a couple of other guys. He's played with 5 teams since then. Last year with Phoenix, very minimal minutes, got DNP'd a lot, and really has proven himself over time, with some bad teams though, that he can score the rock, create a bit, and give you a little bit of something offensively. With the Knicks back in 2014-2015 and 45 games, 41 starts, albeit for a bad Knicks team, he averaged almost 12 points per game. And 2019-2020 season in 66 games, coming off the bench primarily with the Detroit Pistons, he averaged around 10 points per game. If you see movement behind me, I'm dog sitting. That's Chuck, the dog of Mitchell Renz, who hosts the Las Vegas Raiders Report, and as well as some of our NFL content here at Chat Sports. So that is the lowdown on Langston Galloway as well as Avery Bradley. So once again, to round all of this out, according to Shams, Anthony Slater, Golden State signing Avery Bradley and Langston Galloway. They're going to have an opportunity to compete for that 15th and final roster spot once training camp begins next week. NBA Media Day set for September 27th, the beginning of practices for training camp September 28th, and then the Warriors tip off the season a few weeks from now against the Los Angeles Lakers. Before I get out of here, let me ask you this question. What is your level of excitement for this season on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being not excited at all, 10 being very, very excited. It has to be pretty high considering the late season surge that Golden State made last year with Steph Curry still playing like an MVP and winning the scoring title, but now you get Klay Thompson in the fold as well. I think this Warriors team is good enough, well coached enough, well managed enough in the front office that they can compete for the Western Conference. So my level of excitement, it's got to be trending around a 8, maybe even a 9, but let me know your level of excitement down below. And once again, please subscribe to the channel, because even if we have to bring you a video from home after a hike with a hat on, all sweaty, with a dog behind me, we'll do whatever we have to do to give you the best Warriors coverage here on the internet.